Welcome again to the Candidates Forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Northwest Wayne County. This second part of our forum features the two candidates running for the Mayor of Northville position. Each candidate will be allowed 1 minute for the opening statement, 1 minute to respond to questions, and 2 minutes for a closing statement. Let's begin with Brian Turnbull.
And is this on?
Yes, yes, you have to hold it right up to your...
No, actually.
Oh, it wasn't, right up to your...
Top of the evening. Thank you very much for the League of Women Voters for putting this on tonight, and this is a 1 minute. Is that correct?
Yes.
So many of you know me in here. I look around. I know most of the people in here. I come from a 5-generational family in town that have given back for the past 100 years. From my standpoint, this has been part of our DNA and our fabric for all of our lives. My parents always said, learn, do, and give back. It's finally my time to give back. I'm going to do everything for Northville for the rest of my life. For 40 hours a week, for $500 a year, I'm ready to dedicate my life to this. Yes. Oh, okay, $600, God forbid. I'll donate it. From my standpoint, what's on my mind, this has been percolating for the past year or so. The DNA is, number one, if you're a political person, the platform, thoughtful development and how we're dealing with it in town. 2, shared services. And 3, support and bolster our strengths. Downtown, our schools, and also our park place. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Roth.
Good evening. I've lived in Northville with my wife Amy for over 22 years, and like most of you, we are Northville residents by choice. During those 22 years, I've worked to help to make Northville a better place for all of us. I am proud of the leadership role and contributions I have made for over 2 decades to help to shape Northville into the community which we all value so highly. I have served on our Board of Education to help make our schools an educational leader. I've served on our Parks and Rec Commission to preserve and improve our green spaces, and now in my second term as mayor, I've served to protect and improve the city which we all care so deeply for. I have the tested leadership skills to help Northville through its upcoming challenges, and I am asking for your support so that I can continue to work to serve our city.
Thank you. Our first question, we will begin with Mr. Roth. Please discuss what policy you would support that addresses gun violence in schools. In particular, what is your stand on arming teachers? And I know city councils have nothing to do with what school boards have, so your police department does have something.
Sure. So gun violence in schools obviously is a scourge across our country. I served on the Board of Education for 12 and a half years, and as president 3 times on that board, I worked with our administration to improve the security in our schools. I'm not in favor, quite frankly, of arming teachers. I don't think that we should be turning our schools and our educational leaders into police officers. I've worked across our community to make sure that we have appropriate trained law enforcement responses, that our schools have security plans in operation, and when I was on the Board of Education, I worked to make sure that we had plans in place to deal with lockdowns, to deal with shooter events, and to deal with all these very difficult issues that are really a plague across our country. Unfortunately, council, we can give our support and we can encourage our community to work together on this.
Thank you. Mr. Turnbull.
I live this opportunity every day because my wife is a school teacher. She started out as a school teacher in the Northville School District, and now she's in charge of special ed over at Thurston. They have police officers on staff at all the time. I do not believe we need guns and manning the different teachers with that. I hear the opportunities each and every night. It is an unbelievable opportunity in some school districts in the country. We have a great police force. We have people in the schools, but from my standpoint, the policies and procedures that she goes through each and every day, like in Northville now, we're ready for ourselves for opportunities that could happen each and every day. And her school district, which is a little closer to Detroit, there are opportunities. So Northville is not that far away from just making sure we have policies and procedures set. But very important, but no guns.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Turnbull. And the question is, what are the biggest challenges that you see facing the Northville mayor?
Sure. I think the biggest challenge is looking at the future. I'm kind of a futurist. I run a data and marketing company, and every day I get millions of bits of information, and it's my job to simplify it for humanity. We have to look down the road, 5, 8 years down the road, of what we want to be, not only in Northville, but in society. The biggest opportunities I see here in Northville Downs. Why am I here today? Because it started over a year ago with the overdevelopment activity at Northville Downs. I'm the leader of the resistance for less density, more green space, and get the infrastructure involved. To me, that is the #1 opportunity in the future. That, and we don't want to become a Birmingham syndrome situation here. We want green space and we want drainage. That, looking at shared services to save our financial resources and bolstering our strengths, that's where I see our opportunities.
Thank you. Mr. Roth.
The next challenges facing the mayor obviously will include the potential development on the Northville Downs. And part of that issue will include updating the master plan to incorporate everything that we've learned so far from the process. And we've already gotten the ball rolling when it comes to updating the master plan. Another big issue that we're going to be facing is completing the floor area ratio plan. This will help us to control Bigfoot houses and preserve the character of our neighborhoods. The other issues will be the continued implementation of the road bond and moving forward with other infrastructure, and we have plans laid out for our infrastructure updates. We also need to be very diligent to continue to maintain our financial integrity. In the next several years, the city is going to reach a very difficult financial tipping point, and we need to make sure that our plan is adhered to and that we follow through with the financial planning that we've already laid down.
Thank you. Next question will begin with Mr. Roth. What is your position on a Headley override?
Headley is a very complex issue, and we currently in the city are already experiencing Headley rollbacks, and they are already affecting our revenue. Our plan that I've worked through with our city administration is that by the time we begin to see more dramatic effects from Headley rollbacks, we will hopefully be at the point where we have already fully funded our retirement and healthcare funds, and the money that we would have otherwise been putting into those funds, we can then use to offset the Headley rollbacks that we're going to be facing. So it's a very long curve, but we've sat down and done a very comprehensive financial review on how to address it, and we're confident that we can use those funds to fill the void that Headley is surely going to create for us.
Thank you. Mr. Turnbull.
Absolutely. The Headley amendments and the rollbacks have a great opportunity here for Northville, which means problem in my vernacular. In that sense, we can only get so much revenue without having more Bigfoot, without having more development. We are limited on how much we can get. I've been earmarked as being anti-development. I'm not. We need some development. We have to look at the future to get more revenue in Northville. And from that standpoint, it's not only the development at the Downs, it's the entertainment district that might be coming in on Katy Street and other businesses. I believe the mayor's job is to bring new development, new stores, new places to bring people into Northville. But the Headley Amendment does restrict us, and I think there's opportunities. We have to look at the other side of the coin, opportunities for revenue and growth in the city of Northville.
Thank you. Mr. Turnbull, we'll start with you. Are there particular issues that led you to run for mayor?
Absolutely. The issues that we've talked about briefly, number one, the overdevelopment of Northville in some areas. And that's twofold. We talked about thoughtful development. One are the development we're talking about at Northville Downs, but there's where McDonald Ford is and down at Foundry Flask. All these places will be developed. That's one part of the concept I have 104 families come to me and ask me to get involved last October. And in November, there's a meeting at the high school. And when I went to that meeting, I heard from the mayor that it wasn't his job to direct the development and the developer. I absolutely believe it is. So from my standpoint, I'm looking for more green space, less density, and work on the infrastructure, our roads. I was on the road bonds, very glad to be on that team, very disappointed that we're just starting the roads now 1 year from when we approved it. Thank you.
And Mr. Roth.
So I began serving this community over 20 years ago, and I first began when I was asked to help on a school road bond. And one thing led to another, and eventually I found myself on the Board of Education. And when Chris Johnson just announced that he was going to retire, to me that was the perfect opportunity to take all my experience and apply it to the city of Northville. When it comes to something that Brian just said on being on the road bond team, I chaired the Citizens Road Committee. I led the charge in City Council to put together a plan. And I'm glad that Brian decided, along with many others, to write a letter of support and come to our community forums. And if that means being on the team, then great, I appreciate his membership.
Thank you. Mr. Roth, if elected mayor, do you plan to serve your entire term rather than run for another elected office?
Yes, I plan to serve my entire term. The mayor's term is only 2 years. That's pretty easy. I've actually been asked this question in various forums over the years about whether you intend to use this as a stepping stone to higher office. And the answer is absolutely no. I don't see really a higher office that would be as meaningful and valuable as this. I can't even conceive of how people in Washington, D.C. have to function every day, or even people at the Lansing level. It is being able to see the fruit of your labors locally and see the outcomes that you put into action when you walk by them on Main Street that makes all the difference. And that's why you can stay in this job. And that's why I will not be seeking any higher office. And I'll give you 2 years, at least 2 more years.
Thank you. Mr. Turnbull.
So from my standpoint, I've been trying and training for this job my whole life. When I was a kid, I went to the planning commissions, I went to the zoning commissions, I went to the DDA as my dad was babysitting because my mom got rid of me from the house. I've been training my entire life. I've been part of the fabric of Northville. I've worked for recreation. I've worked for the school system. This is part of who I am. There is no higher calling. I always wanted to have a business in Northville, looked at the dealership locally and other things. We have been part of Northville our entire life. My grandfathers were businessmen 100 years ago. One was an electrician in Northville with the storefront downtown, which is where Baby is. The other one was the barber in Northville. I grew up as part of the culture of Northville and the fabric, and I don't think anybody can see all the different aspects as much as I can, because I've worked in just about every area of Northville.
Thank you. The next question goes to your infrastructure, your roads and such. I know that you passed the bond last year. What else do you see moving forward to improve roads and other infrastructure such as water and sewer in the city? Oh, I'm sorry. We'll start with Mr. Turnbull.
So infrastructure is a huge point. We can't have development until we get our infrastructure set. Have you seen the roads? They were a D-, and I appreciate the opportunity. I did a lot of research on the roads bond before I wrote those letters that were published, and we got approval, from last November 5th. I run a data company. I met with most of the different municipalities. I wanted to know what they did on that. It was a great team building activity. Yes, I wrote the letters after having a lot of meetings at my house. So I take a little offense that didn't help get the road bonds going down the road, because I met with hundreds of people in my home. On that, absolutely. We need the infrastructure on not only the roads, but the piping, the lights. I've been here all my life. We haven't changed the lights on 7 Mile and Beck. We don't have smart lights. We don't have right-hand turn lanes. I can't believe we haven't gone to the next level. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Roth.
Well, unfortunately, the city doesn't control the intersection at 7 Mile and Beck, but if we did, maybe we could do something about that as well. The road bond is something that I am extremely proud of, that we were able to put together a plan based on using community input and community forums that won by almost 70%. And I think it's important to note that before I was in office, a similar effort lost by almost 70%. The other infrastructure achievements that we're going to be rolling out very soon is upgrading the water meters. And I'm also very proud of the comprehensive way in which we've been able to finance that, and that we're using internal loans from other cities in the department that have money to loan to our water department so that we don't have to seek outside costly funding to make these critical upgrades in our water system.
Thank you. Mr. Ross will get the next question. What would you do to attract more mom and pop businesses to Northville?
That's a really difficult challenge. For those of you who may not be aware, I ran a mom and pop business for about 15 years. I was pop. And it is a difficult challenge, and to be very candid, Northville is not an easy nut to crack for a mom and pop business. We do great work with our DDA, with our Chamber of Commerce, trying to attract small businesses, and they work very hard. But if you're a small business, the number one thing that's going to attract you is a strong economic environment to live in. That's what small mom and pops need, and that's where the Downs development can be so helpful. And putting my small business owner's hat on, if I'm looking at a good Downs development that will bring customers into downtown, I'm bringing my business here.
Thank you. Mr. Turnbull.
So from my standpoint, as we mentioned, we did have mom and pop stores. The barber in Northville, electrician in Northville, for most of the last century. So we're not new to this. From my standpoint, what can we do for those mom and pop stores? It's to bring opportunities, to bring revenue, to bring people here. How do you do that? You do it by having things going on at Ford Field, which is a very underutilized opportunity. Bring activities here. Make parking easier. Get people in and out. I run data. People don't want to park someplace and walk or shuttle in. We have to give that opportunity. Also, I'm a tech guy. Let's get free delivery for all goods. I might be able to reach out to somebody in business and industry and partnership to make sure we deliver those packages. My wife has about a half a dozen packages on the front porch every day. I want those free coming from all the Northville shops. We have to help them in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull. Next question, we will start with Mr. Turnbull. Do you believe we have an opioid abuse problem in Northville? If so, what will you do to curb it or offer rehabilitation to those afflicted?
I personally believe it's a great opportunity in the entire country right now. And the smaller the community, the more the problem it is. One, it's first education on it. Education for the parents, education at the schools. I run through this again with my wife, the teacher, every day. They have training classes on that for the teachers. I know we have some training within Northville High School. Yes, if we don't think there's an opportunity in Northville on that, there's opportunities within that and other addictions. We have to educate first. We have to not only educate the teachers, we have to educate the students and the parents. I would love to have really a monthly forum, a town hall. That might be one of the opportunities on that town hall. Educate the public. This is real. If you don't think it is, we have an opportunity in Northville. They're wrong. We have to educate all from the beginning to the end on it. Thank you.
Mr. Roth.
We absolutely do. Every community in the country does, regardless of their demographic size or population. We're fortunate in this sense that unlike other communities, instead of having hundreds or thousands of them a year, we have tens. But we still need to address them, and I've made sure that all of our first responders have Narcan kits available to administer to anyone in our community who is suffering from an opioid overdose. I've also made sure that we have the funding available for this by working with the Conference of Western Wayne, who's been a leader really in getting Narcan kits out into the community. I've also been working with the Conference of Western Wayne on a very important issue involving peer counseling. It's been proven that peer counseling is the best intervention to prevent someone from going into an opioid crisis. And that's what I've been advocating, along with making sure when emergencies happen, we have the Narcan to intervene.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Mr. Roth. That is, what are your thoughts about the recent announcement regarding the post office expansion or possible relocation?
So when it comes to the post office, the first the city knew of this was when we received a written communication from the post office that was dated late July of this year. I believe that the best solution is to split the retail and sorting operations so that we can have a postal service presence in the city's business district, as we always have had, and simultaneously reduce truck traffic. And this is exactly what I proposed when the Postal Service was at our council meeting. And I've already been in discussions with our congressional representative about this, advocating this position. There's been a lot of misinformation about this issue, and just to clarify, the city never offered the dog park or the art house to the Postal Service. And it's very disappointing that this rumor was spread by people who chose to cut and paste a post from the online site next door, which was completely inaccurate.
Thank you. Mr. Turnbull.
That is a great opportunity. I know we're under oath here, are we not? So I've listened to the meeting twice on video, and at the beginning of that meeting, the city offered up as part of that package the 2 parcels in the back. And you can go on, the video is great. I'm probably the only one that's listened to the 2.5 years of every council meeting in Northville, and it's a great read and a great listen. But from that standpoint, I agree that we need a post office in downtown Northville. It would be great to be a retail center. We don't need that in the middle of a residential area. We need that where McDonald Ford. 10 years ago, we looked at that in Northville, and that was the best spot for it, coming in and out, egress, and getting the trucks in and out. Absolutely, the post office shouldn't be in that. People are not coming into town, going to the post office and shopping around. I agree, it has to be a retail shop, but then...
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull.
Yes.
The next question is, do you think it's important to increase diversity in the city of Northville? If so, how would you do this? And this can be either age diversity, ethnic diversity, race, such. And we'll start with Mr. Turnbull.
So diversity is multifaceted. I believe we need diversity in business here in Northville to begin with. Different types of businesses, bringing people into town like we said before. Diversity in the clientele that comes to Northville will be brought in by those different businesses. We do not have the diversity that we want, that we have in the township, that we have in Novi. Do we want diversity? Absolutely, in businesses to begin with. That will bring other people, shoppers into town, that will bring other people's buying in the different communities. I live in a wide, diverse world in data. I have every nationality of the 300 scientists working for us right now, and some of the smartest people I've ever been with. Do we want that in Northville? Do we want that diversity? Do we want male, female, young, old, every ethnicity? Absolutely. I sponsor the largest Boy Scout troop that is all inclusive of women. We have 38 young ladies in that. I'm very proud to do that. Diversity, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Roth.
So I do think it's important that Northville increases its diversity in any way that's available to us. And it's very interesting to observe that when you look at our school district, statistically speaking, our school district actually is quite diverse. So the question is, why less so in the city? And I think the reality is it comes down to economics, housing costs and the cost of living. We need to have more available housing stock in the city than we do now, more variety, so that people who are aging out of their homes, like myself, can stay in the city and have a smaller place to live, and so that we can also have units for young people who grew up here and want to move back. So things that are more affordable. Solving the economics will solve the diversity problem, and that's the way to do it.
Thank you. Next question will begin with Mr. Roth. Do you feel that senior citizens funding and programs can be maintained or improved going forward? Why or why not?
Yes, they can be maintained and hopefully improved. When it comes to senior funding, we're in a very interesting situation because of those finances that I just discussed, the economics that I just discussed. We get a paltry amount of outside funding for senior services outside of the city budget. It's literally just in the tens of thousands of dollars. So what I have done is to make sure that the funding what we do have is spent very wisely. I've made sure that Allen Terrace is properly funded and that the building is properly maintained. And I also directed administration to put forward a capital improvement list project for Allen Terrace, which hadn't been done before. So we need to make sure that we are really marshaling our economic resources when it comes to seniors, because we get such little help from outside. But we can maintain and hopefully we can improve.
Thank you. Mr. Turnbull.
Absolutely. As a person that was a caregiver for the historian of Northville who just passed away this past year, I went through training. I went through classes to see what I could do for my father. Absolutely, we need more training. We need more support. We are an aging community. If you look at the demographics in Northville, we're not getting any younger. We need to know how to handle our aged ones. We need to handle our parents. We need to handle those and know how to handle them in the neighborhoods. Absolutely, all the resources we need should be put towards that. Also, we're talking Northville Downs. Senior homes down there, or at least one-story homes with, first floor masters. People are looking for that. People can afford that. They want a walkable distance. We need to look at where Northville is going in 5 or 8 years, and that is where our demographics and that's where the ages is going. Yes, training, absolutely.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Mr. Turnbull. Do you view the tear downs and new home builds in our established neighborhoods as an asset or a detriment to our city? How would you address citizens' concerns of overdevelopment?
So this is very close to me because I just sold my father's house as the trustee. I'm the neighbor, I grew up in the house, and I just sold the house, and I said no to 3 or 4 builders in the city of Northville because I thought they would come and tear it down. Somebody said they were going to renovate the house. I believed them. We went to closing and they were going to keep the front fascia. I believed them. They went through remediation and they found asbestos. They did other things. They found some lead in the pipe. We all lived, I grew up there, it's a 100-year-old home. I've lived and breathed this in the last year and a half. Absolutely, we need homes that fit into the neighborhoods with more green space, with different landscaping. I've done a lot of research on what Plymouth did to look at the policies and procedures so we do more green space and we have drainage. We live on a street that gets stopped up with water every time now because we have 2 homes. So yes, I am all for not the Birmingham syndrome. Thank you.
Mr. Roth.
So I've been working with the Planning Commission to make changes to our ordinances to address this. When I was first elected, the city had in place a lot coverage ordinance to try and address this issue. And I watched it in operation, and quite frankly, it didn't work very well. Then we tried modifying that to change the control over the elevations that could be changed on buildings. new construction, and builders found a way around that. So now I've put into motion a new proposal for a floor area ratio plan. And we've been receiving public input and fine-tuning this, and we're about to roll it out. The plan, when implemented, will result in construction which is more compatible with lot sizes and preserve neighborhood integrity. The floor area ratio plan has been very successfully used in other cities with effective results, and I think it will help preserve the integrity of our neighborhoods.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Mr. Roth. If elected, you will need to reach agreements with others whose interests may be in direct conflict with yours. Describe the last time that you collaborated with people that you either disliked or disagreed with to get something important done.
It's hard to think of a specific case, but one of the things I do in my day job is a arbitrator for the financial industry. And I'm put in the middle of cases all the time that involve claims where people have stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars from people. So the venom runs pretty hard. And I think what you need to do is maintain your objectivity, solicit the input from the parties that you're dealing with, and try and reach a middle ground, whether you're in the middle of it or whether you're the opposing party. And that's the way I've always negotiated with people whenever there's a difficult situation. You don't take it personally, you stay calm, you look at the facts, and you try and reach a win-win situation. And I've had a long history of negotiations in our school district doing that, and resolve some very difficult situations there.
Thank you. Mr. Turnbull.
Could you ask the question again, just to make sure I'm specific on that?
Certainly. Excuse me. If elected, you will need to reach agreements with others whose interests may be in direct conflict with yours. Excuse me. Describe the last time that you collaborated with people you disliked or disagreed with to get something important done.
So 2 parts to that. One, I talk to a lot of people in civics and in different communities that border us right now. I'm not always in the same agreement with them, but a specific, I work in the real world in business for the last 40 years in problem solving, looking at strategy, policies, and procedures, and implementation. Sometimes the client knows an awful lot more than you do because they will tell you they know that. You have to understand data doesn't usually lie. I usually try to get everybody's input around a table. It's just not me. By the time we're done with a meeting, my mode of operation is to listen to everybody. I want them to roll themselves after they hear 3 or 4 people say the opposite. I deal with this almost every day. I get between 6 and 8 million bits of information in the morning, and I have to let the client know this is the direction we're going to go, and he or she has a different opinion. Get all their people involved. Yes.
Thank you.
Collaboration.
Mr. Roth, we'll start with you. What is your position? Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't answer this question.
No, I answered.
You did.
Yeah, I went first last time.
Yep.
Okay. What is your position on having recreational or medical marijuana facilities in Northville? In Mr. Turnbull, I'm sorry, you start.
Sure. Again, personal story. My sister was born with glaucoma. She had 6 or 7 operations before she was 5 years old. She has been on marijuana pills for most of her life for her pain and suffering. I am all for medical marijuana when it's needed. She was one of the first test cases at the University of Michigan 40-some years ago. In Northville, in the DNA of Northville, that opportunity, in my opinion, does not exist. We should not legalize that here. It is legal in many states. It would change the dynamics. It would change the makeup of what we love about Northville. So I'm in agreement with the ordinances that were recently passed that said we will not go along with marijuana distribution and retail outlets in the city of Northville. 100% in support of that. but 100% in support of medical marijuana for those that need it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Roth.
When it comes to the sale or distribution of marijuana in the city, we passed a moratorium on this until there's an opportunity for the licensing body to promulgate rules about it. And the moratorium was for, I believe, 18 months, and it's still in place. And cities have the ability to opt out completely of marijuana sales in their community. And we're going to need to see what LARA, which is the regulatory body, comes up with in terms of their regulatory scheme. Right now, it's not encouraging, and unless they have something that protects individual cities, I would not be in favor of lifting that moratorium. But we're going to see what LARA comes up with, but as it stands now, I want to keep the moratorium in place.
Thank you. This will be the last question of the evening, and we will begin with Mr. Roth. The City of Northville participates in a number of partnerships with Northville Township and the City of Plymouth. What are the advantages or disadvantages to this, and do you feel that they should continue or even be enhanced or others be done?
Well, when it comes to shared services, Northville really was a trailblazer. And I began my experience with shared services about 20 years ago by serving on the Park and Rec Commission. And I've also served on what was then Northville Youth Assistance Commission. So I've served on 2 of the 3 shared services that we have with the township. And they work really, really well, as does our shared service with the City of Plymouth for the fire department. We also have other shared services that we work with in tandem with other communities. But it's not the answer to everything. We need to pick and choose shared services when they work for us, when they save money, and when they're efficient. We've looked at sharing some other services, quite frankly, that didn't look very appealing because they were unique to Northville and we needed to maintain our personal control over them. So they work well and we need to keep them.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Mr. Turnbull.
Shared services are crucial for the future, for our economics of Northville. We have some great shared services. One of them, you're in. The shared service and the agreement here with the library, with the township. This is great. They were going to build their own library at one time. That is one. One is next door. It's a senior center. Great shared service. Third one, what we do with recreation. Are there more? Absolutely out there. Can we work better with the township and others? We have a shared service agreement on the fire department, as Mr. Roth mentioned, with Plymouth. We don't have one with the township. I think that's a travesty, tell you the truth. I have a real world experience. 9/11 services, 911 emergency services, we were going to do something. I have a friend that lives just a couple blocks away from here. His father fell. He bought him a house right in front of his driveway. The Northville Emergency Services came. It's the first house in the township. They waited 7 or 8 minutes for the emergency services to get to his dad. It wasn't life-threatening that day, but it's an opportunity. Absolutely, there's opportunities.
Thank you. Okay, we will start now with the closing comments, and again, you get 2 minutes for this, and Mr. Roth will start closing.
Thank you. So when someone's running for mayor, I think it's critical that they have relevant experience. And here is some of mine. I'm currently in my 2nd term of mayor, and prior to that, I was on the Northville Board of Education for 12 and a half years and was president 3 times. So I served on the Northville Parks and Recreation Commission, the Northville DDA. I am chairman of the 35th District Court Board and chairman of the Northville Plymouth Fire Advisory Board. I've been a Northville Youth Assistant Commissioner, served on the Northville Budget Committee, the Northville Downtown Steering Committee, the Northville Non-Motorized Pathway Committee, and been on the Board of Directors of the Northville Educational Foundation. My public record is an open book. There is no need to guess. In a short time as mayor, working with council, we've accomplished a great deal. We've improved communication with our residents, and for the first time ever, city council meetings are now recorded and posted for everyone to view. We've worked to improve our infrastructure, working across the political spectrum to win a road bond, and work on our roads has begun. As I mentioned previously, that attempt lost by almost 70%. I've strengthened our financial position so that our funding for retirement and health care now exceeds state-required levels. I've made sure that the process for the Downs has been completely transparent and that all who want to participate can. And if there is a development, that it will reflect Northville's character. But there's more to do. We need to put the wheels in motion to reopen the Downs master plan to incorporate everything we've learned so far in this process. And I'd like the opportunity to keep working with all of you to help to keep Northville one of the best small cities in America. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Turnbull.
You could read it again. It's been a long time. Two minutes since it started. What's the question again?
Oh, no, this is your closing statement.
Oh,
So you get 2
I
minutes.
forbid. So in general, my experience runs deep. I appreciate the experience from my colleague. My experience is real for the last 40 years in business. Strategy, implementation, and looking at the policies and procedures. I've been part of the Northville fabric my entire life. I've been part of almost every group here. Half the experience was gained once you became the mayor. I've actually been working for 40 years out there in the real world. I oversee a fund in the community at church for $1.2 million that supports the community. I've been involved in the church organization for 45 years as the person in charge of men's club, is in charge of council and the whole bit. I'm the president of the Old Timers Association. I'm a lecturer, I'm a historian of Northville, whether I want to be or not, because my dad was, and it's my privilege to be that. I have 100 people coming here in a week from now. It's been part of our fabric. Entire life, everything I've done in Northville, there is no next game. I'm going to be involved with Northville on committees for the rest of my life. I'm ready to engage. As my parents always said, learn, do, and then give back. I'm ready to give back for the rest of my life. Do I have political experience? Absolutely not. Is that a bad thing? In my opinion, absolutely not. So from my opinion, my background has got me ready for this for my 59 years on this planet. And everybody that came to me, I asked them, the 102 families or the 104 families, I asked them for their commitment to be involved with the city in the future in any way they can, if I'll be a conduit for this future movement for the city. It's my pleasure to be here. If you have any questions, go to turnbullformayor.com. We've been asking people to do that for the past year. Thank you.
We thank the Northville City Council and the mayoral candidates for their willingness to serve the public, and to the audience for your very thoughtful questions. We thank the Northville Library for allowing us to use their facility for the forum tonight. Our forum has been videotaped and can be viewed on our website, lowvnorthwestwayne.org, beginning the week of September the 23rd. Besides considering the candidates featured in tonight's forum, we also urge voters to review the responses of the candidates at the League's nonpartisan online voter guide, which will be available after September the 24th at vote411.org. Also, print copies of the voter guide will be available at the Northville Library in early October. Election day is November the 5th, and the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Voters can choose up to 2 city council candidates and 1 mayoral candidate. When you vote in person, you will be asked for a picture ID, but if you do not have a picture ID or you don't have it with you, you can still vote by signing an affidavit of identity. We urge you all to participate in our democracy by making educated choices in the election. This concludes our forum this evening. Thank you for coming, and please, all of that information, the website and such, is on this little bookmark that is available outside the door. Thank you again, and you got hard choices to make. You got good